Hey, Simplifiers, it's Evan Umberger. Today I have a great friend, Jay Truitt, on here. We weaved through so many amazing topics. I mean, his background with politics was, there. We talked about, the ripple effect that can happen in your life and that happened in his life, things that we got into some heart-wrenching conversation. We actually had to break this up into 2 episodes because, there was so much that we talked about forgiveness, about how, we can really be able to spread light in a world that needs us, and yet should we be sitting by the pool and just enjoying our retirement? Just to give you a heads up, we kind of just hit record and went straight into it. We were already chatting. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to record this. So just know that you're going to get in the depths and you're going to love it.
This is the normal process that kind of takes place when Washington goes through its biannual event for the House, and every 4 years for the, what do you call that? Is that a quad-annual? Not for sure. But anyway, our normal presidential election cycle, right?
Right.
And all the deck chairs move. Everybody wants to call and rethink about what the priorities are. And so one of the things still that we have in our life is a public policy company that I started in 2009. And that company still has kind of its focus, and the people that are in DC run it and work on that. But I get the calls when things don't go like everyone thought. Right.
Right.
And so there's a lot of those calls this week. I get to raise my hand. I'm the guy that, and I was public about it, right? I said what I thought the outcome would be, and I'm pretty close.
Right.
It was a little more significant than what I thought it would be, but I think if you just get out and about in America, you saw that there was kind of a different flavor of a conversation taking place, and it does bring up some of the other things that I think are really important for people to kind of keep an eye on. Our old traditional information streams and the way you get information, where you go look for information, how the people that you talk to do those 2 things, how businesses get information today, and how people actually then, obviously, because of all that, then turn around and disseminate information has dramatically shifted. And the people that didn't figure that out were the mainstream media. And
it was like curveball for them.
Oh, big time. And I think the most telling thing that anybody said in the whole election was when Mr. Trump actually just alluded to the fact, hey, listen, most of the press that we actually got was earned media.
Yes, I saw that.
Right. And I think it kind of, I guarantee you the folks that I know that work in the media industry, especially in DC, right, they heard that. They know exactly what that meant. And it meant that they didn't get the ad buys, right? And it meant also, though, I think even more importantly is that in the future, they may not get them either.
Right. There's going to be the ripple effect.
Right. And so the Harris camp did a little more of a traditional ad buy and promotions. And the Democrats stayed with that. Usually the Democrats are are on the cutting edge for figuring out what is next and new. And they have
paying off brand ambassadors, we call celebrity. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
All that kind of thing, right? That used to be what worked. And today, we know that didn't. And we had a funny conversation in my own house, literally just last night. My wife asked me, who is Joe Rogan? And she's a well-informed, well-equipped person, right? She spends a lot of time on social media. It's not like she's out about. And she'd heard the name, but she never really asked anybody, so who is this guy? And I said, well, he has the most watched or listened to podcast in the world.
Right.
And he's number 1. I said, he makes Rush Limbaugh look irrelevant, when you compare different eras. And
Sure.
I mean, Rush got up to what, maybe, 16 or 17 million people, and Joe is what, 30 or 35 million, something like that, right? Some
Right.
crazy. And and she goes, "Well, who watches him?" And I said, "Well, I'm probably a little old in his audience, but from me down to your grandsons,
Right.
they watch him." And she goes, "Well, how did you get started?" I said, UFC, right? I mean, it all started off talking about just random people that would climb into a ring and beat the crap out of each other, and then he began to make these social comments, and comments
Right.
about other things. He's a little bit of a libertarian. Well, actually, you'd probably call him quite a bit of a libertarian.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And now he has these other guys that are pretty interesting that come in on a regular standard basis and sit down. I
Mhm.
said, he's the only guy that interviewed Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Elon Musk, Ramaswamy, pretty much everybody then that was going to be involved in making that thing work. And I said that the Harris camp just missed the boat, right? And I really was pretty shocked that they did that. To be honest with you, it was. I like good competition, right? I like it when professionals really square off and go head to head in the political world. But
Yeah.
it, Trump just beat him to a punch, right? He lost once because he missed a punch and
Sure.
got hit, right? And he didn't have his ground prepared to respond to what COVID brought to the table. That's the reason he's not the president today,
Right.
right? He just missed that. And that was really a campaign error, probably more than anything, because his approval, disapproval rating is about the same,
Sure.
right? It didn't really change too much. Um, if anything, it probably got worse, but he still was able to come through that. So, and again, the Republicans take the Senate, Republicans take the House. That changes everything. It's going to change everything for all of us,
Yeah.
right? Good, better, and different. You can either be upset about it or you can go back and be one of those people, like I said, that number 5 person that just figures out how to actually disseminate information that matters to people in the way that matters to them and kind of address. Um,
Well, let's talk about that, Jay. I mean, that's actually like a really big point because it's like there's so many things to be able to look at and to go, okay, there's different metrics, but like
yeah,
there's only a few like real levers that really make the difference.
yeah, yeah, no. The options that a person has today are almost unlimited.
Hmm.
You and I have talked about this, before a couple of different times, and you know this, but so one of the other things we do is we have a construction company, right? That builds houses. That we built all different kinds of houses basically in the Dallas Fort Worth market. It started as a flipping company, but that really is a real classic example of just how uh, the way you do transactions today in the real estate business and how you find properties and how you used to find them compared to the way you did it in just 5 years, how you finance, right? Not,
Right.
not even remotely close to the same thing, right? Everything about that business has shifted. In just, we started that company in 2014, I think it was. And there's literally almost nothing about it that's remotely similar to the same as the first day, our first concerns, right?
Right.
And then you talk about, so you want to try to network, right? Let's just use a real simple thing, right? You know that if you're going to be in business, you're going to have to figure out how to network. Well, used to be that we all put on a blue jacket and a white shirt with a little phony tie, and our khakis, and we do a networking meeting and everybody'd sit around and pat each other on the back and have business cards handed out. And,
Play dress up. Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah. Right. And say nice things, right? You try to comb your hair and be all shaved and stuff. But, and the reality is that, so I ordered some business cards today and it occurred to me, it's the first time I've done it in like 5 years because I
Sure.
just don't use them anymore,
Yeah.
you know? but I'm opening a couple new venues inside of our business, and I am going to get out and do some face-to-face meetings again. But people opted in. So then what happened, right? People moved into LinkedIn. They moved into watching podcasts or doing a podcast, right? Or starting their own virtual networking systems, right? And creating all those mechanisms. And I mean, it's a great thing. I spent 4 hours today on Zoom calls. Again, this is just so that we can realign ourselves properly with the way that lenders want to communicate with some people that want us to be their lender or to actually send the right partners to them, et cetera, et
Right.
cetera, et cetera. And so it's just completely different. Right. And I will tell you, for the people that wonder, again, I was a lobbyist for a lot of years. It's not what I spend all my days doing. That world changed too, right? They do the same thing. And it does make it easier for people to communicate with them. But imagine being a staffer that has to keep track of a LinkedIn, 2 email addresses, 2 cell phones, a Facebook page for the boss, a Facebook page for yourself, monitor everybody's Facebook positions, right? And monitor their Instagram, their Rumble account, their 5,000 podcasts that you might be subscribed to that would deal with the 12 subject matters that you're responsible for dealing with. And I think it did create a bit of, well, I don't know about everybody else, but for me, it creates a bit of an information overload.
Absolutely.
Scenario. And you have to something has to go, right? Something has to, and I don't know what that is, right? And for people like me, I still think it's important. I start the day, in the same way that I have for a long time, right? I have Bible devotionals, et cetera, et cetera. But now I have a Bible devotional that is on my phone. I actually ask an AI app these interesting questions about it once in a while, and it sets up a plan for me, et cetera, et cetera. Oh. And you go, man, it's all too weird. It's not where we thought it would be, but it is where we are. And you can either embrace it or get left behind, because it's not going to stop.
The train's moving. Yeah.
No. And it's at full speed, and you're not driving it. So figure out how to, unless you're one of the 6 people in the world that really control those entities, you're not driving it. So figure out how you make it work for you the very best you can. Right.
It was interesting. Today we were uploading a long form video for a client, and it immediately on YouTube asked, like my wife was like, "Oh, why did it upload it as a reel?" Oh no, it's actually taking moments and asking me if I want to upload it as a reel. Like it even threw her off. Yeah. And I was like, oh, the point was like, oh, YouTube's really pushing reels. And of course they've been doing that, but they just took it to another level. They, created this, experience that when you're uploading it, like I haven't even experienced it myself. Maybe I will, soon, but I was just like, there are other people that are saying, this is where we're going and we're going to create the mechanisms. And at some point you have to go, okay, this is just the game. The game is pivoted. The game's changed. Yeah. And I've got to change what I'm doing. I've got to do things, it's not familiar. It's maybe not comfortable at all, but this is just how things are done moving forward. This is how people communicate. This is how they prefer to be able to get their media. It used to be, I think like you're referring to earlier, is like, you got the newspaper out and you're looking at the stocks. I think that's kind of where you're headed earlier, but you're kind of going, okay, there's more things. And at some level, there's more options, and you kind of have to go, even what's your own style, and kind of go, okay, I'm going to do the things that I know that I can do. And then I've got to learn, I've got to adapt, and I've got to do a little bit more.
No, exactly. And so the things that actually made you valuable at some point in the past may not have any value at all in the future. And one of the lessons I had to learn and so let's go back to my public policy world life. One of the gifts that I was blessed with is a bit of an eidetic memory. And so if I read something on a piece of paper, I never forget what it is. And I am that crazy dude. I read Obamacare, right? I had literally stuck in my head is almost the entire bill, page by page by page. And I can like file through it in my head. Well,
Right.
in the 90s, that made me like a really unique guy because people would call and say,
Whoa.
"Hey, what does chapter 12 of something say?" On some 1,000-page bill. Well, if I had actually read it, which I did, then I could do it. Today, again, we're back. Now I have a device that I literally just type in a couple of search words, and so the value that I brought to the table then has
Mhm.
literally zero value today. Nobody cares that I have all that stuff stuck in my head and now I can't get it out. Right.
It's trivia,
Yeah,
maybe to them.
well, maybe, but I mean, there's no like political trivia pursuit. Nobody really cares. Right.
That's exactly. That's the
Yeah.
point.
It's, we can't even remember who our two governors ago was in most states. Right. Um,
Right.
well, and even people like me have trouble kind of keeping track. But again, we shifted that all,
Mhm.
in a big way. Um, To just again, literally the most simplistic things, right? That you used to do that took again, like you said, you whip out the Wall Street Journal, and in my case, I'd read the Bible and have a cup of coffee and then read the Wall Street Journal, and that was how I started my day. Well, I still drink coffee. And I still have a Bible, there's one right over here and there's another one back over here on this side of the desk, but, and occasionally I do like still flip them over, right. And read them,
Right.
but, uh, that's not the way that we go through. It's not the way we find properties that we're going to buy.
Sure.
We also, my wife is a realtor and she would hate for me to say this, but I mean, I feel really bad for realtors today because I think the lawsuit that came along and how it actually just shifted the dynamic in the industry opens the door for really innovative people to find a whole different way to actually source property. I go online every single day and I check for property tax delinquent properties in all 50 states in the United States, right? And I do it like that. It takes 2 seconds.
Mhm.
I literally don't even have to think about it. Just click on an icon on my screen. It flaps open. Everything auto fills and auto populates, and it tells me everything that is for sale, how far they're delinquent, what it would cost me to actually engage in an auction on sales, et cetera, et cetera. And that's not even my big priority.
Right.
Yeah, but the reason that I would even have the icon on my screen is because I don't have to do anything to actually do that and to look at it. I paid
Right.
for it once and it's behind me and it's a sunk cost and I never have to really pay for it again.
Right.
And, we do that. We do the same thing when we're acquiring materials for the construction business. We have a concierge manager that takes care of that stuff for us. And she puts a spreadsheet out that actually fills in links from a dozen different places, pulls all those numbers back. And I would tell you the difference between that today, those estimates on cost and availability and everything today are even with supply chain issues and blah, 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 right? They're 10 times as they were when we were doing it manually. And I'm on the phone with
Sure.
whether it's 84 Lumber or Home Depot or whoever, right? You're trying to actually get something nailed down and calling some Yahoo at a window company in Boise, Idaho. Now those systems just auto search everything, right? And they
Right.
pull all that information together for you and it's pretty reliable. I mean, more reliable than, again, the media that we just watch blow on both sides of the political line. Right?
Right.
Taking a shot at left or right, everybody. So, um, it, that just changes the way that you have to like at everything that you do.
Mhm.
I mean, almost everything that you do, and our kids, it's real natural. I'm one of those people. I'm still kind of marveling at it. I mean, I just think about it every once in a while and I go like, man, this is amazing, right? It's still, I guess I'm not old enough that I'm not resisting it. I'm not going to fight back, but, cause I just decided to embrace it, be happy and
Yeah.
embrace it and go.
I mean, one thing I was talking with my dad, I think it was Sunday night, and he was telling me about your lunch over
Mhm.
the weekend.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you want to go into it. My
Sure.
point is you have really adjusted your typical flipping business, flipping houses. And then you've eventually gotten into, okay, we're going to build, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million homes
Right.
and take over these lots. And you don't really care how much they say
Yeah.
ARV is going to be, because you're like, oh, we're going to wipe it clean and then we're going to build on top.
Start from
But
scratch. Yeah.
right, but you've just had these different phases that
Yeah.
you have adjusted. And what my dad was telling me, it just immediately caught me to go like, I can't wait to talk to Jay about it. If
Well,
you want to, but
so in that conversation, I see all of this stuff kind of as organically connected, right?
yep.
And I think there is a purpose. I do believe people have to live with a purpose, right?
Mm.
So what is your purpose? What are you really going to be about? And it doesn't have to be like, I'm going to be the best optometrist that ever existed, right? If that is your purpose, then maybe it is, because it's important that people can see, right? I mean, I'm blind without them. You're probably
Same.
close to the same, right? And so, yeah, it's not about that at all. But what are going to be the real drivers that make you wake up early in the morning, right? And want to actually put your feet on the floor. And when you're raising kids, it's, for me at least, it was a little easier for me to identify those things. I kind of went through a phase of about maybe 5 or 6 years when the kids all left and they're all doing fine, right? Unfortunately,
Sure.
they didn't need me. Nobody moved back home. I didn't have any of that kind of stuff, right? That some parents have. And they find great mates, and their lives are moving along and their careers are fine. And uh, I had to go back and actually do some real hardcore self-evaluation and decide, what is my purpose today?
Ooh,
Right.
yeah.
So what am I really about? And so in the midst of that is where we came up with the idea about, well, and it was partly to satisfy some of our own interests, was to figure out how do you invest in your business in a professional way that the investment itself actually makes money on top of the business making money.
Sure.
It's a really interesting dynamic when you really think about it like that. So how do you consider the return on the investment that you put into a business just with the net profit of that? Or do you consider the opportunity cost? Because I could have put this into the stock market. I could have bought NVIDIA stock with it. Look at me today. I wouldn't even take your call. Right.
Right.
I'd be off on an island somewhere, with an umbrella drink in my hand, laughing at life. But no, in all seriousness, so we sat down and like, especially in the construction, the real estate business, there's like a million gurus that do a million options, but you start looking at the things that become important and the things that make it all intersect, and money is what drives it all. Money in and money out on the backside. And so I decided that we could try to figure out how to continually grow the construction business to the point that would kind of overwhelm us, or we could, my son-in-law and I had a lot of conversations, and he came up with the idea. This isn't me. But he said, I think it's more important that we figure out how to control the verticals in the business. Right.
Boom.
And that because then they can grow bigger than the home building business.
Right.
And we don't have to own them exclusively to do that. We can do that by being in partnership with people that are really highly motivated and highly skilled at things that they do. And so that was kind of where they started. Well, one of the verticals that I saw that was like critical to both us and to the verticals that we were trying to create was essentially a private lending mechanism that would help people figure out how to do startup businesses or to help do that. And so it took me a couple of years. We finally have created a means. And I think within the next week or so, maybe even by the end of this week, we'll have all the paperwork done where we can actually start really I can literally just send somebody a link and say, hey, fill this out. These guys will look at all the different financing options that want to work for your equipment lease. If you're going to do spray foam insulation, right? Or you want to buy a skid steer loader, or maybe you got really lucky and you're really smart and you figured out how to get bonded properly. And so now you're doing city contracts, but it takes 90 days to get paid.
Right.
And so you don't want to be out 30 days for that. I want you to be in business because you also work for me.
Exactly. You're protecting your own vendors.
I'm protecting my own interest, right? And I want that guy to grow, and I want him to be able to continually upgrade his equipment, because I don't want to have to form a new relationship with somebody every single day. Right?
Exactly. And they can get, maybe better buying power.
Oh, absolutely.
Like there's so many aspects to it.
Oh no, because and so it's to our benefit to allow them to access our channels for acquisition, right? And absolutely, I want them to have the ability to you get every discount I can possibly get. I want them to be able to access that. And because that volume may actually make it possible for both of us to get an even better deal.
Sure.
I already have an agreement with the guy on what my price per square foot is going to be, or what my component costs are going to be, or labor costs are going to be. And he's probably going to jack me up when he gets busier, right? Do you think that he's going to be uncompetitive with everybody else in the neighborhood? And more importantly, we've been able to rely on those people for a long time. I do think there's some importance to that, but more importantly, this was my personal thing. I wanted to make sure those guys could actually grow.
Yes.
And I want to make money doing that.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to think that I have some philanthropic motivation about it. But I do know that there's a lot of different ways you can go about that.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is that somebody can be ineligible for financing through a syndicate that maybe I can get you access to. But if you don't get the loan, there's two things that happen after that. Somebody can say, okay, here's exactly why you didn't get the loan, and here's exactly what you can do to actually get the loan the next time. Let's just fix that and let's take care of that. Or
Sure.
This is the mistake that was made. And they can be your friend and try to help you through that process. Or they can go, you know what, you got it or you didn't get it, and no skin off my teeth. There's somebody right behind you, out the way.
Right.
Well,
but that just doesn't, it doesn't play with who you are either,
No. And, mainly because I had people that actually really took a whole lot of time with me, you know? And, you know what? I am a big believer in the whole pay it forward kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean that I don't believe in capitalism. I absolutely do. I'm a unashamed capitalist, right? But by the same token, I do think it's possible to make more money as a result of helping other people make money. Mm-hmm. And for their business to grow helps my business to grow, or to become more efficient, or more capitalized, or maybe they outgrow me completely. And then I can just say, I know them win. Cool.
Right. I helped them on their journey. Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll go find somebody else. And if their business growing has been a profitable thing for us all the way, then the incentive is to repeat that again, and to rinse and repeat it into perpetuity. If you're just sinking money in and you never really get it back, and there's no real return to you, then the incentive for doing it again, now that relies just on my character. Well, my character is flawed.
Sure.
Right. And it's not always perfect. It's mostly not perfect. But I mean, again, in reality, I think most people are that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it's good for you, then you try to figure out how to help. So we were literally trying to figure out how to do some win-win things, and we're finally getting some of those things done. And it's very cool to get to see, a dozen different companies that that you helped start off, and I see those guys every week, somewhere around town, and some of them are buying new trucks, some of them have retired right next, and some of them sold their company to somebody else. All those things don't have to be a negative. All those things can be a positive, And
Exactly.
we don't, I think sometimes we get so caught up in trying to figure out how to do it our way. I didn't invent that system, by the way, at all. A guy named Bob Richter, um, that I knew a long, long time ago, is a fantastic businessman. Um, Gave me about half that lesson, and the other lesson came from a guy named Gene Bicknell, who lives down in Pittsburgh, Kansas. He's the Pizza Hut guy in
Yeah.
Kansas. Uh, has a little trouble once in a while with the state of Kansas. He ruffles feathers every once in a while, but he also is a great businessman. But both of them, the lesson that I learned from them is that you can you can maximize your benefit by maximizing other people's benefit.
Hmm.
And it, it, if you don't get so focused on the order that comes in,
Right.
then you're good. There's times when you don't have a choice, right? And again, I get it that, again, back to the time when I have two kids and one of them's going to college and she decided to go to the most expensive outstate university that she could possibly find on the map, right? And my son decides at the same time that he wants to be on every travel team, for every sport that mankind has known. And, and your wife is burning through a vehicle a year, right? To try to just drive kids around and to get all of that stuff done. It's a little hard for you to focus on things outside of your immediate sphere. But for those of us that aren't in that position, we have the ability to do that. And because that is top one, right? There's nothing more important that you do in your life than those things. Well,
Yeah.
to try to do those things properly. It's more important in your career, your bank account, anything else. And I do believe that. But then you get to the point where you can step back and you can really now you can think about this thing in a different way, because your responsibilities are different. And it so happens that I'm partners with family in that,
Yeah.
and some of my decisions as well, which is fine, good, great, actually. But yeah, I think where we are in the world today, um, allows us to manage more things at one time than what we could at some time in the past, certainly in less hours of the day.
Absolutely.
Well, get more done. You may not work fewer hours, but you get a lot more done if you really apply yourself.
Absolutely.
Figure it out. You also
What would
spend the entire day scrolling through Instagram, right?
Right. It's possible.
I mean, and laughing at funny memes on some great, right? Maybe that's what makes you feel good, and so that's fine too.
So what would you say? I mean, based off of the trajectory now of, where your conversations, you thought were going in one way, and now, like you
Yeah,
said, you're getting phone calls the last week, just like, oh, what do I do? How are things going to be different? I mean, what do
yeah.
you foresee as far as you know, where we're headed?
So I think we probably make some adjustments in the construction company and maybe push down on the luxury homes for a while, not do a
Mhm.
dozen or more of those in a year, and instead do more affordable housing. I'm in one of those people. I think we're in a recession now already. We've been in one for a little while. Nobody wants to admit that from a political standpoint. The
Sure.
realities are that the economy is in a weird spot and we're in a hot spot. And I still
Right.
see all the indications of it. When I go elsewhere, I can
DFW.
really see
I
it.
mean, it's still climbing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but there are some real demands in the market, in the Dallas Fort Worth market, North Texas market, for affordable housing that are not going to go away. I mean, and we're going to see massive growth in this area. We're the new Los Angeles, however you want to call it, right? People have different descriptors of it. And so we're going to try to meet some of the demands for that. But with that said, I think we can build those smaller homes. We can build that 1,700 square foot to 3,200 square foot home,
Mhm.
with our eyes closed, kind of. I mean, our systems are really tuned up to
Got
that.
this. Yeah,
Yeah.
got the process down.
Yeah. And we have good architects, we have good people, et cetera, that can do all that. So that becomes kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And what I think what I will spend my personal time on is with the personal lending and the other vertical developments and the other people that are involved. And your dad was at the meeting on Sunday where I found a whole new group of people that I'd never really thought about trying to figure out how to actually do that with. And like,
Yeah.
the lights go off. You go like, oh, wow. You know what? It's just one of those things, right? Lord works in mysterious ways. And sometimes he just has you sitting down across the table from a guy that's from Rwanda that moved to Fort Worth and you don't really know why. And all of a sudden, bingo, it all makes sense. And, yeah. So, uh, and the best part, I'm pretty sure your dad bought lunch even. So that made it even better.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
it's just it's so neat that I mean, you've got this like compounded amount of like learning. There's the times are changing, the game is changing, and yet the things that you've been able to grow into, and that you've been able to really see the opportunity, like you were just saying. It's like, oh, it's actually lining up even better than I expected.
oh yeah. Right. No, yeah. And, I, again, I think maybe the key in that, right, is just being willing to learn all the
Mhm.
time, right? And I love doing that. Um, but I'm not a very good student anymore, you know, not like I was once. I think I was at one point in my life, I was a really good student, and so today, but it's a whole lot easier to do it. You,
Mhm.
again, you can spend your time if you want to, you can go find the experts in almost any arena that you want to find. And if you're dedicated to it, you can get yourself on their schedule and they will spend time actually telling you, showing you, explaining to you exactly how to do what you need to do.
Mhm.
And you can do that from your office
Oh, sure.
or from your couch, right? For goodness sakes, right? I mean, how many people even meet in an office anymore, right? It's a pretty limited number. And so those things used to, the things that you can do within just, with a matter of just focusing on sending a handful of emails and really staying in touch and trying to communicate, manage your communications, et cetera. Um, it would have taken months and months and months to do that in the past. And we didn't really even accelerate this whole plan until like a few weeks ago. And now we've been able to go through and maybe compile like, um, 1,000 pieces of regulatory paper that all need to be done, but it's all automated and some AI, uh, bot on the computer actually, helped me answer most of the questions that needed to be answered accurately and professionally. And so it's those kinds of things that I think do make it possible for you to not. I mean, we didn't stop doing anything we were doing, but we just added a lot of stuff to our plate. Um, that I think I mean, I look back when I wanted to do this a long time ago. I just didn't have the guts to do it or think I had the time. And now you can do it a lot easier than you think.
What are some other examples, other stories of, times where there was like a limiting belief, or there was like maybe it was an internal belief, an external belief that you were just really challenged and burdened by, and you were, like what was the spark? What was the thing that encouraged you to just go out and do it and break through?
Yeah, when I first left the day to day management of the public policy company and stepped away from that, I thought I was going to retire. I was going to retire. That was my original plan. And uh, you know, I admire the guys that can retire, but it took me about 5 weeks for me to realize I'm not one of those people. You know, I can't. I needed something to like challenge my head. And I
Yeah.
and here and here I had lived, I'd planned and prepared and everything. And I had like 25 years of laser beam focus on a day when I could build a new pool in my backyard of a house that's completely paid for and in a neighborhood that wasn't Washington, DC. And it happened to be in Texas. Right. And so,
Right.
um, and I could sit in that pool and just like put my arms on the side and chill out. The grandkids come over and play, et cetera, and everything was going to be fine. Right. That was going to be the perfect scenario. And, Kathy my wife was the first one to identify that, it was weird.
Right.
Right. And she just,
active guy,
yeah. Yeah. And I was a burn the candle at both ends kind of person, right? For decades. And then all of a sudden I'm just around the house all the time. And we got along fine. It wasn't that like it created any issues there, but she walked out the back door one day after I'd sat in the pool for about 6 weeks straight. And, she looks at me and she goes, "Hey, tomorrow I want you to go somewhere and do something." And I go, "What do you mean?" Yeah. And I thought she was asking me to run errands or do a favor for her. And
Right.
I said, "What is it that you need?" She goes, "I just need you to not be this guy. I want you to be that guy that you were. This is too weird. I can't look out my window and see you just chilling out. It's just weird." And the truth is, I was literally sitting at the end of the pool thinking the same thing.
Right.
But she pushed me to get in my vehicle the next morning and go, "Okay, what are you going to do?" And I had a beautiful office at home. So I still actually ran the office from the house then.
Yeah.
Uh, so she's responsible for forcing me into that. And I think all of us need to, it's a benefit when you have people that actually care about you, right? And they'll just hate you and want you out of their hair. They really care about you and see that this is a time that somebody needs to light a fire under your hiney, right? Or to give you a little kick, or maybe just to say, "Hey, surely there's something else here, right? What else is it that this can't be it?" And she would have been happy if I'd have went and got a job at the local, Whataburger and cleaned up tables all day. I think, right? It'd been fine. She's never said anything one way or another since then about it, but um, it's. I will say this. I think it wasn't there wasn't a flash of light or anything.
Sure.
But I did meet a bunch of people that all of a sudden inspired me that there was a lot of ways I could look at life. And so I had a chance to actually pick and choose. That makes me blessed. I understand that. But we did some stuff that didn't work out too, right? I don't want to nobody should take away. We started a dozen businesses and 8 of them are no longer around.
Sure.
Yeah. And, okay. I learned a lot in each one of those. I learned things I didn't like to, and I learned a handful of things. You always have little regrets or things that kind of, you go like, "Man, if I would have just done so-and-so, that probably would have worked, or I could have done so-and-so." But, we helped, my first venue into working with startups, didn't have anything to do with construction at all. We helped a company called Staken, which is up in Montana, with some startup capital and help them find good partners for that and some people that could help them do the things that they needed to do inside their company. A friend of mine and I helped them get that company started, and now they're selling product in 2 or 3 countries around the world. They're selling a beef product tastes just like bacon in countries where bacon, pork is not allowed to be consumed.
Oh,
And so people still love bacon, right?
sure.
Who doesn't? If you don't, I don't actually think I want to know you because I'm pretty sure we won't be friends. But No, I mean, in all seriousness, and this guy, this is a young guy, has a PhD in physics, right? Physics, right? He's a math major, basically, and
Right.
kind of a nerd. And he and his mom were just sitting around talking about it, came up with this idea. And again, the first time he approached me about it, uh, I thought, yeah, good luck to you, right? And then it occurred to me, we could actually help this guy. We could help him get it started. We made a little
Right.
tiny bit of money on the whole thing, not enough to amount to anything. That wasn't the real purpose for it. But I think it did instill in me the idea that there's ways for me to make money and other people to actually benefit from that. And again, it set us on about a 10-year path that we're just kind of finishing this week and put this
Cool.
private financing, private lending, and syndication thing together. But it's cool. And sometime in the next couple of weeks, people will probably see some random ad on their Facebook or LinkedIn page, and all I want you to do is just click on it.
So how are you helping people in the lending area?
So the primary targets initially are going to be people that are in the construction business because that's the ones that we really understand the most.
Sure.
But it's with the people that are in business, but they're really still a startup company and they need some startup capital. And there's unique people that like to loan that kind of money, right?
Right.
It's not. So one of the things I don't focus on, I have a relationship with a bunch of hard money guys, just like everybody does, people that do non-traditional kind of stuff. There's plenty of people in that business. They don't need me to help with
Right.
that necessarily. If you want the number for one, Google. There's they're in every community in America, right? Um, but it's the other sidebar things, right? For the people that do get contract type work, trying to get those invoices cleared becomes a real issue, right? And so doing some MCA type financing, right, for merchant activity, just and the other side of it is for most people, one of the things they don't teach you, I don't even think it really gets taught in business schools today because I run into it all the time. People don't understand how to actually create business credit,
Mm-hmm.
credit for your business so that your business can operate in a different mode. Because then your business is operating on its own as its own entity, truly. And it's not just relying on you. You become a
Right.
little bit irrelevant in that and you can manage that differently. And you begin to look at that entity differently when you're doing it that way. And all of us have to start off. Well, you don't have to, but almost all of us start off as sole proprietorships and it grows into something else. But once you begin to make that next step and you start looking at, well, then what's my next capital? What's my next corporate formation structure going to be? And you start looking at the differences between LLCs and S corps and C corps and holding companies and all those sorts of things, right? Taxes tend to drive you there, but honestly, for somebody that's just starting out, if you make a couple of choices correctly in the beginning, the tax issue will address itself, right? You will have already been ahead of that game and you won't have that one painful year that convinces you, yeah, I need to pay a lawyer to do that. And that, I mean, so again, that's where maybe my past is a little bit unique because I had a lot of depth and experience in that. But that's the part that I actually enjoy the most is
Cool.
finding people that really have a cool idea. It's not going to have to be my idea. And I don't want to own a piece of it, because I don't bring anything to the table, but I can point them to the places they should be. And I don't even need to get paid. The syndicate can take care of me, right? That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to make sure that people get connected. So it's doing those kinds of things. And whether that's business lines of credit, which is a really weird thing to try to get done with a bank in today's world.
Yeah.
And it's not the bank's fault, right? They've been regulated to the extent that those things are a nightmare. But there's private capital sources that like to do that. Sometimes
Mhm.
there are people that want to take equity positions and venture capital. I don't really encourage any of those, but I can introduce you to some of those people if that's what you like. Uh, but more importantly, it's about, so if you don't have enough credit, if you don't have enough credit history to be able to buy a new skid steer loader, but you need a skid steer loader for your business badly, and the financing companies won't loan you money for a used one, but you can find a really good used one. How do
Right.
you do that? Right?
Yeah.
How do you do that? And nobody really wants to do it. And the bank doesn't really want to loan money on used equipment because they don't really know what the conditions were. But there
Mhm.
are entities that will. And so that's what this group syndicate of companies, or this collection of companies that has come together. That's really what all of us were about in the first place, was trying to figure out how to help those that get left out of the mainstream system. I love banks, right? So nobody should take anything away from this. I think I think they are the cornerstone of what we do in the country. But you can't you can't be upset with a bank because they don't loan you money when they're told how they can loan money.
Right. It's like these are their rules. These are regulations.
They,
This is what they
yeah,
can do. This is what they can't do.
yeah. And they're just as frustrated with you because you didn't come in the door 20% down so that you can get the cheapest interest rate that would be available, right? That's sure. And the ultimate goal is to move everybody off of these alternative systems and move them over to a traditional banking
Mhm.
relationship. That's obviously where you want to be, right? But how do you increase the number of people that can walk in the door of the bank and actually get business there? And
Mhm.
that's the question for us or for me, that I wanted to answer. And I mean, it's not a secret, right? I live and work in an area where the vast majority of the people have a completely different culture base, right? They come with
Sure.
a Hispanic or a different culture about how they're actually going to manage that and oversee their business. And you can give them a huge help just by helping them figure those basic things out, right?
Right.
And all of a sudden now they've that's also part of the American dream, right?
Mhm.
Is being able to figure out how to use the system that's been created instead of just
Mhm.
fighting against it or trying to actually run around behind the back door all the time. If you use the system, almost always if you look hard enough, there's a way to do it. We want to be the people that helps facilitate that.
And I mean, just like you said earlier, there were people that helped you,
Oh,
that
absolutely.
spent time with you. It's like, man, if I didn't have those people, I wouldn't be where I am today. I mean,
Nah.
it's the ripple effect that I heard a message on Sunday, it was about the butterfly effect.
Yep.
And it was about just the point of, you really don't know the impact that you can have on someone else's life. And yet you think about your own life and you go, oh, if it wasn't for these people and this word of encouragement and someone pointing me in this direction
Yeah.
and going after this, that I was able to grow into where I
My
am today. And
Listen, my first big experience uh, at exactly that, right, where somebody actually just uh, handheld me through a process was, and again, I mentioned his name earlier, Gene Bicknell, national, um, had the was the largest Pizza Hut franchise holder in America for a good number of years. He got involved in some agriculture entities, and one day he and I we were going to do a project together, like he needed me, right? He was,
he
he was,
wanted to be with you, Jay.
yeah.
Come on,
Well, he
man.
did. He did need some of my expertise and my time, and so he was willing to partner with me on a little project, and we had to fill out a joint financial statement. Well, his was in a 3-ring binder, and I mean, literally, it was packed full of 1 million pages of information and his information for the last, 5 years or whatever. And I looked at his net worth on the very last page. It wasn't really my business to look at it, but I couldn't help it. I flipped it over and I looked at it, and his number was exactly twice what mine was if I also moved the comma 3 spaces. And I looked at that, and I felt bad because here mine is like, right, is on 3 sheets of paper, right?
Right.
and I think I'm worth like $1,700. And here we're trying to actually fill it's basically for a credit app that we were going to uh, run some operational stuff through. And I mentioned it to him. I said, "Hey, thanks for doing that. Seemed kind of silly for me to put a piece of paper down." And he scolded.
Oh,
He said, "Why?" He goes, don't ever feel that way." He goes, "I've been at this for a long time." He goes, "I have
mm,
63 people in my company that fill out that." He goes, "I actually didn't have anything to do with it.
mm.
What I did have something to do with was finding you." And he goes, "Well, we didn't have anyone inside the company that could do what you could do today. And that's what we were actually looking for." He goes,
Right.
"I don't really care about the piece of paper that you put down. It was irrelevant, but those 3 pieces of paper compared to whatever it is that they gave you to give on my part, right? Because that makes us equal partners in the venture. And so whose pieces of paper were really more valuable?" And and that's correct, right?
Huge perspective shift.
Yeah, somebody, for some reason or another, the Lord put that guy in a path and a head on path with me, and as a result of that, I got to spend a whole bunch of quality time with the guy that literally funded the business school at a small little regional university, a D2 university, right?
That's
Um,
awesome.
and I got all that for free.
Hmm.
I mean, really, all it took was me of being ashamed a little bit and not
Yeah.
so ashamed that I didn't go ahead and just do the thing with the guy, right? And he knew I didn't have any money, right? I mean, I didn't have to ever
Right.
say that to him at the time. And we made a little bit of money in that whole deal. But what I took away from it was unbelievably invaluable. And I still have people that do that to me today, still, right?
Mm.
Random people, that just like open your eyes to whole new things. My son-in-law is my junior in age, right? But he's a brilliant businessman and inspires me to be a lot more aggressive about things and to, have more aggressive growth goals. Otherwise I might still be in the pool,
Right.
in the backyard doing nothing, and irritating my wife with a really good suntan. But, you know, but yeah, again, I really don't think honestly, I don't really think we're unique. I just think that, we, we happen to be in the right place at the right time.
I know that I've been at the right place at the right time so many times, more often. I feel like Mr. Magoo than anything else. But guys, tell me what you think about this episode. There's more to come. We've got like another hour that you're going to love for the part 2. So please let me know, comment, shoot me, a DM. Tell me what's going on about your thoughts about this conversation. This is huge. So Jay is amazing. We've been friends for a long time. He's one of my dad's best friends. But I've really been able to just see the way he treats his family, the way he treats his friends, the way that he leads in business. And it's just so inspiring. And so I'm just so delighted that you were able to listen to this conversation. And please let me know what your thoughts are. Until then, keep it simple, Saints.